Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the BBSim and Scalability Brigade for June 25th, 2020. I realize we have the wrong date here. Um, we only have two items on the agenda. The first, I guess, is a discussion on this Jira from Amit, and then I wanted to um, make a point on where we stand with scalability and what are the latest issues that we are um, seeing in the test and chasing down. Um, so, Amit, do you want to talk about this?
Yeah, sure. I can talk about this one. So, yeah, basically, I created this Jira to address a problem that we are seeing or we were seeing when we try to work with multiple OLTs. So basically, multiple OLTs of different types, which are using different adapters. So with some of the latest changes that have happened for the support of multiple Volta stacks, now, when we bring up the ONU adapter, we need to pass as an argument to it the OLT adapter to which it is going to be talking to, right? So with this in place, if we have to work with multiple types of OLTs, different adapters, of course, then we would have to bring up a set of ONU adapter instances which would work with one type and another set of ONU adapter instances which would work with another type, which is doable. But the point is that we have this proxy address, right, between the adapters, which specifically is meant to handle that, in my understanding, that using this construct, the two can talk to each other. And when a child device gets created, the core tells the child device about this proxy address as to who is the OLT to whom it should talk to. But before the support for multiple stacks, the way it was done is that it contained just the name of the adapter, and that mapped to the topic to which they were reading and writing from, and that then it worked. But when multiple stack support was brought in, different topics were to be used for the different stacks, the different Kafka topics, and then this thing did not work. But I think we could change that and get it working with using this proxy address. The advantage that it would bring is that it would make life much more easier. Than we don't have to do static binding of, okay, these instances of the ONU adapter are going to talk to this particular OT adapter, and then again do calculations of sizing, saying that, okay, on this type of OLTs, we're going to have this many ONUs, so this many instances of ONU adapter. I think with the static binding, it becomes a little bit of a hassle. So that's the basic idea. Any questions?
Yeah, so one thing is that these changes were done not to support the multi-stack, but to support the OpenONU horizontal scalability. Because before than that, yeah, the device type was enough to identify the topic because we only have one adapter. But our adapters are not stateless, so you cannot just send a message to any of the adapters listening to that topic. Um, and that is the reason this change was made in the OpenONU adapter. Now we know that the way it is implemented now, it's not ideal. There are 3 patches around that that wanted to introduce in the Python version of the library the same mechanism to dynamically retrieve the topic that we have in the Go library. We decided not to go down that route because the OpenONU adapter is going to be rewritten in Golang. It's actually already in progress and a pretty good progress. So once we migrate to the Golang version of the adapter, we'll be able to use the same algorithm to dynamically select the topic. So this should be kind of resolved. But Ken, do you have any opinion on this?
Yeah, you said it right, Matteo. Like once we move, the ONU adapter moves to Go, then the same exact mechanism can be used for whenever we have one or multiple OLT adapters. It's the same thing. The core will target a certain device to a given OLT adapter, and the ONU adapter will target the exact same one based on the exact same algorithm that we're using to send a request or a message back to an OLT adapter. So that will be fixed by itself for once we move the ONU adapter to Go. But that said, I mean, is because this is support of multiple OLT adapters, right? Is it that's not the immediate future, right?
So actually at Deutsche Telekom, we are trying out with two different OLT adapters, and that is when we face this. So the situation as of today is that at a point of time, we can use only one OLT adapter at a time, unless we bring up another set of ONU adapters. Right? So we could do that. So it's not a blocker, but as I said, it's not really good to work with. Right?
Well, but you'll still have to partition the ONU devices that are managed from different OLTs. Is that correct?
That should not be a need, right?
Well, but there are only so many ONUs that one adapter can support. So yes. I'm guessing that if you are using two different OLT adapters, is that because you have two different OLT models? And if you have two OLTs, you'll probably get past the limit for a single OpenONU adapter. So you'll need to have multiple. The difference is that you'll have one replica set versus multiple replica set.
Yeah, so you're correct. We're using two different adapters because there are two adapters from two different vendors. Right? So the two different OLT adapters itself. And the number of ONUs, I won't think it is a constraint because we're working with physical devices. So it's not going to be a huge number. Right? It's not really a scale problem.
So you have, let me get this right. So you have one OLT adapter supporting two different types of ONU adapters. Is that correct?
No.
Okay.
So the ONU adapter is only one, which is the Broadcom Open ONU adapter, right?
Okay.
Okay. And we have two OLT adapters. One is the Open OLT adapter.
Mm-hmm.
The other is another OLT adapter, right, coming from a vendor.
Okay.
Right. And using both these OLT adapters or the underlying OLTs, we are talking to the same model of ONUs, which are basically SERCOM ONUs, which are compatible with the Broadcom Open ONU adapter.
Okay.
Right. So what we need is that both the vendor OLT adapter as well as the open OLT adapter can talk to the Broadcom open ONU adapters, right? And
okay.
so when we bring up the open ONU adapters, we could always bring them up. That's what I've been saying that, okay, I bring up 3 instances of the Broadcom open ONU adapter to talk to open OLT adapter, and 3 instances of the Broadcom open ONU adapter to talk to the vendor OLT adapter. We could do that, but we're trying to avoid that.
Yeah, but I think what we are trying to tell you is that the static bindings were done for a reason. And the reason was that the ONU adapters are not stateless. So upon ONU adapter restart, right, it's like if an adapter instance fails, it's not like we can migrate whatever transactions were going on with the ONU to a different ONU adapter. We actually wanted it to fail, Kubernetes to restart it, and the same bindings then persist, so that when this adapter comes back to life, it pulls whatever information it needs from etcd and then continues the transactions. We actually explicitly talked about this in the scalability brigade for a while, and then chose to go with the static bindings. We didn't want it to dynamically, we didn't want certain ONUs that were being handled by an ONU adapter to dynamically move to a different ONU adapter if one of those adapters fail.
So I agree to that, and I think I understand that. What we are questioning is that we are passing the name of the OLT adapter to the ONU adapter. I don't understand why that is needed for the static binding of which ONU goes to which ONU adapter instance. I agree to that part, that there has to be a static binding of each ONU going to a ONU instance. But why do you need to pass the open OLT adapter ID to the ONU adapter ID?
I don't know the
I thought
details.
that
Somebody
is
can help
needed
me
only
out.
for the multiple Volta stack support.
Yeah. That's right. This part. So originally the OpenOLT adapter name was hard-coded into the OpenONU adapter. With the multiple Volta stacks, we had to pull that out because you may have multiple OpenOLT adapters belonging to different stacks, and the OpenONU adapter needs to know to which one to talk.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
So instead of, okay. So using this proxy address, we can still handle this multi-stack case.
Yes.
Using the changes suggested by Amit.
I think so. Yeah.
Honestly, I don't really understand what we can't do today that require that change.
So I think what we cannot do today is having two OLT adapters for two different, let's say the OpenOLT adapter and the Atran OLT adapter, talking to the same OpenONU adapter.
They both of those OLT adapters will have their own topics on Kafka, right?
Yes. The fact is that now the OpenONU adapter doesn't dynamically choose the adapter on which to respond, but it just sends to whatever it's configured at startup. So you can only use one or the other. If you want to use two different OpenOLT adapters, as now you need to spin up two different sets of OpenONU adapters with the configured topic.
So when we send a request, when the OLT adapter send a request something that to an ONU adapter, it includes its own topic that it needs that the ONU adapter needs to use to reply to. So that should not be a problem. The only possibility would be for if there's any messages that is generated from the ONU adapter, then that could be a problem.
So Ken, you are correct. So it was not a problem earlier, but when this change for multiple volta stacks came in, the ONU adapter now does not respond back to the topic in the proxy address, but it responds back to the topic that is passed to it as a command line argument at startup. So what you're saying was the behavior earlier, but it no longer is the case.
So this just sounds like it's a combination of it should be changed back, and if there's an issue with multiple stacks and having a collision of the topic, then the configuration for this should get passed to, in some way it should get passed to the alt adapter so that it can say, you know, please reply to my specific topic for this stack. It seems like all we have to do is revert the change and then redo it more carefully considering this case.
Yeah, so I don't think we want to revert the change 2 days before code freeze.
So I actually don't
so
think
this is marked as future. This is marked as
yeah,
future.
it is marked as future. I think it deserves a discussion where Mahir and Sarkant are also around. Let's take this to the TST call on Tuesdays instead of this particular call. Would that be okay, Amit?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, meanwhile, I'll tag Serkant, Mahir, and David on this Jira, so they can start chiming in because they were the one most active in the multi-stack support.
Right. That makes sense.
They
usually come to this call also.
Yeah,
sorry.
But
go ahead.
The reason that change was done is that the device type that was used before would be the same across the stack, while the adapter name would be different. So there was a need to put in that configuration. But yeah, this is a good proposal for 2.5, I guess.
Yeah, and I think, Amit, for the time being, you can bring up 2 ONU adapters, right? Talking to 2 different OLT adapters. So it's not like if you're trying these things out.
It's not
Okay, so let's take this to the TST call and discuss beyond 2.4. Yeah, so let's move on to the scale issues that we're trying to understand.
Okay, thanks, Amit. So the second point was simply to see where we stand with scale. And I would say we are pretty much in the same position that we all know about. The Deutsche Telekom workflow for 512 subscriber is working. AT&T is working up to pushing the flows and fast authentication, and we're now consistently arriving to the DHCP step. As we can see, when we run a test with 512 subscribers, everything goes fine. They are all authenticated. We can provision all of them, so the issue with the flow removal has definitely been fixed, and then we can provision all the 3,000 flows for them. Then we generally fail at the step of getting all of them through DHCP. If we look at the numbers, we are generally very, very close to make it there. In this run, we were very, very close. We had few successes in the last few days. So I think we're getting close. Now I try to keep everyone up to date on the mailing list. So you should have received these pretty boring thread with all the logs. And what we have noticed yesterday is that with this patch, that is still a work in progress, but I'm hoping to be done with it by today in the OpenOLT adapter, we can resolve all the concurrency issues that we were seeing last week. And it seems to work reliably. The only errors we keep seeing are these happening during the packet indication, and they all point to an error similar to this one. So basically, we cannot find the correct or new ID starting from the gem port ID. Now I started looking at the logs, and I originally thought that this was an issue in the OpenOLT adapter, but after talking more with Girish about this, we can see that for that that gem port 1270 that I was tracking down on interface 13, because the gem port IDs are unique across PON. We can see that it's added to the cache, and then 45 seconds later or so, it's deleted from the cache. Now, this is because at this point in time, we were provisioning the default flows with the default VLAN and default bandwidth profile and default everything. So this gem was created for that particular device. At this point in time, we call the add subscriber command in ONOS, and that basically uninstalled the flow from the ONU. And that flow was the only flow in that device. So being given that we removed the only flow in the device, we also removed the gem from the cache and the storage, because a new one will be generated when we create new flows. So what I'm currently suspecting is that
Can I interrupt you here 1 second?
Yeah.
I'm trying to ask this really a question for Girish then. Is it necessary to remove the gem port? Is there a property in the gem port that is tied to that default VLAN or something else that requires it to be removed and a new one to be created once the subscriber flows come in?
Well, it's the gem port has nothing tied to any VLAN or any such config, but it's a generic logic where when no flows are referring to a gem port, we remove the gem port. I mean, so that's a very generic logic. So otherwise, how do we know once a flow is removed, say the default EA poll flow is removed?
Mm-hmm.
How are we sure that the subscriber? No, anything could happen, right? I mean, it's a very generic logic. So when no flows are there, you just remove all the PON configuration. Why maintain stale? Why allocate these resources? Just free them up.
Does anything else happen, say on the ONU side, that does similar cleanup?
Yes, so once we delete, free up this gem port from the PON resource pool, we also send this delete gem port to the ONU adapter. So that also goes ahead and cleans up this gem port.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Yeah, there's a one-to-one mapping, right?
Yeah. So, Girish, at this point of time, when this EAPOL flow is created, the tech profile that needs to be used for this ONU is already known, right?
Yeah, it's known. Yeah.
Yeah. So how about that? If we, as Saurabh was trying to hint at, right? If we don't remove any of this pawn configuration, that once we know the tech profile, we know that, okay, this is a 4gem configuration or whatever is the configuration, and we create them once and for all, whether there are flows or not, they remain always.
Well, this ONU could be, so how do you differentiate between a flow removal and a delete
Full,
ONU?
yeah,
Full cleanup. I mean,
yeah.
when all the services are removed and even the EAPOL is removed for some, I mean, no flows exist, but the ONU is there. The ONU is there in the system, but no flows are there. So why do we need to, maintain this jump port? So there is no clear demarcation between these two scenarios, right? I mean, the adapter doesn't know what's happening.
Yeah, so when the flows are not there, you'll not have the flows, right? So
now, what Saurabh was suggesting is when there are no flows also, but the ONU is there in the system, you still have these jump ports, allocated for that ONU.
yeah, that's the same even what I'm trying to suggest.
But
I think
why?
so. In terms of the adapter knowing the difference between a simple flow removal and an actual decommissioning of the ONU or something like that could simply be well, the adapter actually gets a delete OLT or a delete ONU call from, say, Volt Kettle, at which point it really knows it needs to do a full cleanup of all state. Whereas a flow removal could literally be a temporary thing, right? Is that not a way to distinguish between?
Yeah. So yeah, logically yes. So that is a way to know. Well, I have to think about all the cases, but yes, that is one possibility. When you delete the ONU, you're completely decommissioning the ONU, and then we could completely free up all these pawn resources.
So, sorry to interrupt, Girish. I think maybe when the first default EAPOL flow comes in, I think the tech profile of the subscriber is not known, I think. And that's why I think you need to remove it.
No, we know the tech profile. No,
Well,
we don't
no,
know
I
that.
It's the
don't think
default
so.
Yeah,
tech
I'm
we
looking
don't
profile,
know.
at it.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah, we
I'm
don't know
looking at
that.
the
Yes.
flow. You're right.
Yes, the
I'm
default
not.
tech profile, and yeah, sorry, yeah. So that's why you need to remove it. Yeah.
Yes, you're right. Yeah, we don't know the subscriber profile yet at that time. Yes, you're right.
I'm looking at the EAPOL, the default EAPOL flow, and tech profile is something that we usually put in the metadata field. And the metadata field, as far as I can tell, is not showing the tech profile. So let's see.
I think that is hard coded to
No, actually
64
it
or
is there.
something.
It is there, actually. There is
So what we
ahead.
do there, I think, is we hard code that to 64. 64 is considered a default tech profile, and if you have uploaded the actual subscriber tech profile also on the 64, and if that's a 1tcon 4gem, we install 1tcon 4gem, although we just need probably just one gem port for handling EAPOL.
Yeah.
Well, ideally, you could have a
Okay.
default tech profile, just 1tcon 1gem for handling EAPOL, and probably another subscriber tech profile, just 1tcon 4gem or 8gem.
But still, there is no guarantee that when you when you later on provision the data plane flow, they'll use the same type profile. So I think we still need to remove the gem and recreate it.
Yeah.
So is this leading to a race condition, or what exactly is the problem that this is?
I'm still tracking down the problem, but I don't think the problem is in the adapter itself. I think the problem is in BBSim, because BBSim was not waiting to get a gem port the second time, and it wasn't caring about a message remove the gem port. So BBSim thought he had a gem port, a valid gem port after the equal flow, and it was reusing that same gem port to send the DHCP packet. Now, in most cases, apparently, at least with BBSim and the default type profile, the ONU will get the same gem port, and that's why some of them complete DHCP, but that's not a guarantee. So we'll need to first confirm that this is actually happening in BBSim, and second, create a patch to fix that behavior. I have a first preliminary patch that I started testing this morning, and it's not 100% working.
Sorry, I didn't understand your explanation why then some succeed and some don't.
Because when you remove the gem port for one ONU and then you recreate it, it's possible that you'll get the same gem port number.
So just when you run, coincidence? Coincidence, you mean? Yeah.
I think it's not really coincidence, but I think it's you'll get like an incremental number for the gem port.
Wait, let me ask then: is gem port IDs reused? I guess if you're deleting it and then reusing it, then you can get back the same number, right?
Yeah, it just allocates the first available. So if a hole is created in the pool, I mean, the first free one is assigned.
Right. Makes sense.
And
okay.
When you run with a small number of ONUs, that everything goes very, very fast. They are all freed before you start asking them back, so they all get the same value they had before. And so when you run with like 8 or 16 ONUs, you'll never see this issue. When you run with a bigger number, there are two things that happen. One is that you may get some gem ports that are different, and that BBSim needs to address them. And then BBSim succeeds with some ONUs for two reasons. One is that some of them get the same gem port ID, and some other of them, since this gem port allocation is done by the OpenONU adapter and the flows are pushed by the OpenOLT adapter, you have no guarantee which one happens first. And so for some of them, their gem port is updated before the device actually receives the flows and start the HTTP.
I didn't understand. So the gem port is assigned by the OLT adapter, not ONU.
Yeah, but then it's pushed down to the ONU via an MCI message.
Oh, got it. I got what you're saying. Okay.
Because if you send a new gem port to BBSim will actually update that value. It just won't wait for it. So if that value is updated before then BBSim starts sending these packets, then everything is good. What we need to change is to force BBSim to wait for the new value before starting to send the DHCP packet. And I think this is the case because when you have a run in which few ONUs fail DHCP, and you manually go and restart the DHCP process for those ONU, then it succeeds because at that point the gem port has been updated.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. So we know the problem. So it's
Yeah, I think this theory is the one that makes the most sense. So I'm going to clean up this patch and see if I can get it to work. I think for once is the simulator problem and not a system scale problem.
Yeah, so I looked at the EA-poll, default VLAN EA-poll flow, and in the metadata, it does carry that 64 tech profile number.
Yeah.
But then the subsequent subscriber VLAN flows also carry that 64 number. So we do know the tech profile in the very first, assuming that tech profile is not a default tech profile, it's actually the subscriber's tech profile.
Yeah, we should get those flows when we are using a different tech profile for the subscriber. But I don't think we have those.
We actually need to try it. Even in our functional testing, we need to try different tech profiles. Maybe
yes.
a 64 and a 65, with the 64 being 1-1 and a 65 or something being a 1-4.
Yes.
Just to exercise that code path, that logic. Okay, good point.
Okay. This is everything I had for today. So if there isn't anything else, I'll go back getting this patch to work.
Just one thing, Matteo.
Yeah.
I tried to reproduce the etcd problem by disabling the in-memory flag. But for some reason, I'm no longer seeing those exceptions. Is it just because of we're seeing those other problems earlier, and that's it's not getting to the point where we are actually overloading etcd?
That's a good question, but also before we were not seeing it at every run. So I wonder if it was more of a problem of having tail data around during the cleanup phase. So I don't know if you were running the test 4 times back to back. The content of that folder was never cleaned, and so etcd had to deal with a way bigger file on the file system, and that was causing the timeout. Because now that we are doing some runs in memory and some runs writing on the disk, I can't see that issue anymore.
Okay, because I've been running like with that memory, like maybe a few runs. I can't remember if it was 4 or more or less, and at least it was 3 runs, and I couldn't see that problem. So I was just wondering if it's, what changed in that environment. So maybe
nothing has changed. Nothing has changed in the cluster except it has been forcefully rebooted because of a power outage last week.
Oh, okay.
Over the weekend, actually.
Okay. Then we just need to keep an eye on the problem.
But let me get this straight then. Are you, Matteo, doing all your runs now with etcd in memory?
I'm doing some and some. This is a flag in the build that lets you toggle between the two.
And the reason for doing some and some is what?
To make sure that both works. Because when we moved to in memory, we were seeing a lot of race conditions. So from this week, I haven't seen the timeout in etcd anymore since when we merged the port capability patches. But in the days previous to that, when I was running in memory, I was seeing concurrent map access errors in the OpenOLT adapter. So I'm doing some and some to see if we get back the TCD timeout or the concurrent write on the map.
Got it. Yeah. So making things faster by doing things in memory exposed some other problems. Okay.
Yeah.
Got it. But having said all that, what about Ken's retry patch? Is that merged or planned to merge? Because even if...
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, trying to finish. I'm saying even if it is a so-called workaround, it's still a good one, and there are always logs that will be warning us, right? That, hey, etcd seems to be under pressure, so I'm getting this timeout, so now I'm retrying. So even in the case where we are doing runs with etcd normally backing up to disk, we should still be able to identify this issue happening, even though we are retrying and so things aren't actually failing.
Yeah, that's correct. Like I have the patch and I was trying to test it, and then I stopped reproducing the problem. So it's,
I see.
Yeah.
So the patch hasn't merged.
No, it has not been merged. No.
Okay.
Like
but you were never able to test the patch in a case where there was a timeout?
I was able to test it before, but then after that, I changed some of the logic of that patch to make it even more specific to that error message that we were getting from etcd. And I wanted to try that one out. And then after that, I just couldn't reproduce the problem. But when the problem was happening all the time, the retry was fixing it.
Okay.
Yeah, but I want to be able to reproduce that problem and make sure that that patch works before I can merge it.
We can probably try to run that on a very slow system and see if that helps.
And what would be that system?
We have a single cluster, a cluster with a single node on a smaller server that we use to test the changes on the pipeline itself. We can give it a try on that, but that is a single node, so we'll probably have a single etcd instance. I don't know.
Yeah, I honestly, I prefer to try on the real cluster with the real error message that we're getting in, because there's some error message I think it's we should not retry, but there are some specific error message that we should retry. So if we go with a cluster that is minimized, we may be getting like different kind of error messages that don't need to have a retry on them. So I think after that patch, after the fix for the BBSim and if any in OpenOLT, once you start to run and with not in memory, chances are we'll start to see the problem again. Then I can actually test the patch.
Okay, yeah, I can stop running things in memory because I think that race condition has been fixed, so I can reset the default to run a writing to the disk and see if that helps getting the issue back. I think I'm going to do a fair amount of runs today, so if it was a caching problem, we should start seeing the game.
Okay, thank that will help definitely.
And like if we don't see this issue, I don't think it's critical that this patch gets merged, right? Like it's
yeah,
like, I'll admit I'm not hugely in favor of the retry to start with. Like, I don't think we should be running into that case, right? If etcd is running correctly and things are timing out, that's one thing. But this weird case is odd, and we shouldn't have it in the first place.
Well,
But how is it harming anything, Kent?
So it doesn't harm anything. It just adds, in my opinion, this fixes a hack, and it just adds more complexity that doesn't need to be there. Right?
I don't know if it's a hack. I think it's it's pretty common that you retry things
Right.
in networking in general.
Yes.
It's you know how there is, you write code and then you harden the code for taking all edge cases into account.
Yes.
And to me, this is a hardening patch.
So my concern is that right now we do, so this patch does a retry on sort of a very low level, whereas normally what I'd expect in a failure case like this is you let the error propagate all the way back to the caller and let them retry. This particular case is odd because like it's a timeout, but it's not a timeout. Like it's giving a timeout error, but it's not actually because of a timeout. It's because of etcd changing who the master is. So in theory, etcd should just be like silently handling this. I think it's an etcd issue. The question is, should we retry at such a low level in the Volta libgo, or should we let it propagate all the way back and say, okay, the thing you're trying to do failed, and let the client retry? Either that's Onos or just letting the error go all the way back to Volt control or something like that. It's mostly a question of philosophy. All I'm saying is that if this patch isn't needed, and it turns out that other changes fix the issue, I would be perfectly happy to just not merge it.
But if we don't see that issue anymore, then we don't need the patch, because the patch is there to fix an issue. But for this specific scenario, if we see that problem often, I don't have any problem to address that issue at that low level for this specific scenario, because even if you propagate that error back to the caller, it won't do much in this specific scenario, because this specific scenario, it's a node that have changed. etcd is not going to fix it. I guarantee you that by googling around, they have a lot of issues that have not been fixed. Yes. So our code needs to address it, and if we can address it right at the source where we are seeing that problem, remember, we're getting for etcd, somebody's making a request, and in their context they have a timeout. As long as we are retrying within that timeout for that specific case, I don't have a problem for that.
Yes, I agree completely. Just all I'm saying is there is a lot of the discussion was heading in a direction of like trying to forcibly reproduce the issue in order to get things, like in order to merge this, but I'd rather see the issue on the real system and see it fixed on the real system. That's all. But
yeah,
yes,
that's what we're trying to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it will be helpful to see on different setups if we get that issue or not, because we're basing our analysis on a single setup, but I don't know if people in production are going to use exactly the same servers with the same memory, with the same disk, and so that there is a lot of variability. I mean, it's also possible that the etcd cluster in production will be on a completely different set of server, and it will be installed directly on the server instead of in Docker. So,
yeah, that's correct. That's correct. And one of the things that some of those issues, like when I was searching on it, many of them was pointing to kind of a disk problem, and the latencies of the disk, and they were kind of mentioning that in many etcd deployment, actually many of the data is on SSDs instead of the actual disk per se, just to reduce the latencies. So there are some of it potentially maybe we won't be able to resolve in our environment.
Yeah, so I checked our cluster as SSDs. It doesn't have traditional rotating hard disk.
Okay.
But I think that running etcd on top of Kubernetes is probably adding some kind of delay in talking to the disk, because it's not a straight call. It's going through these namespaces. It's expected that when you run something on a virtualized system, it has slower access to the disk.
Yeah, that's correct.
So we have SSDs in our cluster?
Yeah.
So
yeah,
what's the
I don't remember
resolution
the
on this? Oh, okay. What's the resolution on this? We continue to try and reproduce the issue by running etcd not in memory.
Yeah.
And if we continue to see this issue, or we can reproduce this issue, then we must dispatch, right?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay. I can live with that.
Okay, just to I can tell you exactly which hard disk do we have. When I looked it up the other day, it didn't seem to be the fanciest hard disk, but also not the ugliest one. Is this light on LCS blah blah blah. And when you go to look in the benchmark for that disk, it seems to sit pretty much in the average of their disk. So
okay, thanks.
okay, guys, thanks everyone for joining, and I'll keep you posted on the mailing list with what we'll find out today and tomorrow with the 2 patches we have discussed today.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Bye.
Have a good day, everyone.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Thank you.